Come on, you're the main. You and Mayor are the main three.
It's almost
right
like
the three
you
of
guys
you
should sit next to each other and we'll just keep it on YouTube the whole time.
That's
Okay.
Alrighty.
We are.
Chris is leading this.
We are officially live, guys.
You leading it?
Now say hello. Everyone.
All right, let me do this and do this. Everyone's got a good mic check going on.
Are you going to do their camera?
Yeah, mic check, mic check. Yeah, your camera's coming up next. I'll do that as we begin.
There we go.
In 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Agents of Recovery podcast, everybody. We are excited today because in studios, aka the kitchen of the Robinson home in Springville, Utah, we have the whole tribe and then some. We've got Max Hall and Kinsey. Say hi, you two.
What's up?
How's it going, Blue?
Kinsey, come on. One more
Come
time.
on, Kinsey, get in there.
Get in there.
Hi.
There you go.
There you go.
That's it. Absolutely. And we have Brock and Marin. You two say hi.
Hello.
What's up?
Awesome. We're excited to do our very first live feed. And the great thing about this is your turn to participate, to jump on, to ask questions, and to, whatever is in your heart. It doesn't matter if it's addiction, recovery, it could be mental health. It could be you wonder where Brock got his awesome shirt that we'll be showing you here in about 2 seconds. As I jump on here to get you guys' camera rolling, Brock, why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit about your experience today and about shirt number 1. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have this young lady. I'm going to give her a shout out, Destiny Hall from Snowflake. Okay. I've worked with her husband, and she asked me, "Hey, you need some shirts made?" And I said, "I do." So I came up with this great idea to get I intercepted Max Hall shirt made, and I got on the airplane today with it, and Max and his wife got on the airplane with us. So it was a good time.
Who got there first? Did you get there first?
No, they did. They actually, I know. And they had breakfast.
It was a perfect setup for Brock. I'm sitting there trying to enjoy a little, we're at Panera or whatever it is, a little breakfast, and here he comes walking up with this shirt.
And then it took us to the BYU Stadium and to the bookstore, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
That's awesome.
And so the second shirt is on the market. We are going to sell them within the next 2 weeks on the podcast link, and it's a Max Hall wrecking himself, desperately needing help shirt. So, yeah. I'm
going to attach that video too to this, because if you can see it, viewers, there's Max at the perfect apex of taking a header into the dirt, trying to navigate this mountain bike down the steepest hill I've ever seen. There's a story behind that, Max. What was it?
Yeah, can I jump in here? Jeez. So I'm with a buddy of mine, Trent, and then my brother Jason, and we're out at Gold Canyon mountain bike. I've gotten really into mountain biking, especially since the pandemic hit. So I think I'm pretty good, right? So we're going down some red trails, some goofy stuff. And there's this one section that's super steep, and you got to hit this certain spine on the trail. And I did it once and cleared it. So I said, "Oh man, I'm going to do that again. Jason, get your phone out. Let's videotape this." And of course, on the second time, I go over the handlebars.
So it went from mountain biking to mountain wrecking.
To mountain, if you want. Yeah, thanks, Brock. However, my little brother decided to send it out to everybody. It's on TikTok. It's on his Instagram. So the thing went viral. Okay. And Brock got a hold of the video. Did I send you the video, Brock?
You did.
I sent it to him. I thought I could trust him, that he would kind of keep the video to him, but no. He said that his family's getting a kick out of it, right? It can't stop watching. So he pauses it at the perfect time. When you see his shirt, I am midair about to smash my face on a rock. So it's actually a cool picture, though.
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
Yeah. So if you would like to see it, go to Addict to Athlete podcast link, and they're available. $19.99.
That is way cool. Hey, I'm excited today because we have our wives here, and I was under the impression that we were going to have them do that from day one, but they were both very surprised when they walked in here. You guys didn't let them know about the secret, did you? That they'd be on the camera and on the recording today.
No, I did tell my wife. My wife is fully aware of this. She just has been backpedaling since day one, but she was aware of it. She just didn't really think it was going to happen.
I think that's what I thought too.
Yeah, that is so funny. It's awesome. Well, as we're getting all of our P's and Q's in a line right here, I want to touch base just briefly on kind of why you're here, Max, why we decided to do this. We just recorded a couple weeks ago our spirituality podcast, and kind of how that plays into recovery from addictions and kind of gets you to a place where you have that North Star. So tell the listeners why you're here in Utah, and I want to jump to some of our questions we've got here already. So tell us a little bit about why you guys are here in the first place.
Yeah, so we've been talking about doing this live podcast and how cool it would be for us to be all together like we're doing right now. So it's a little bit of a trial run right now, but I think this is pretty cool. The other reason that we're here is I got asked to speak in a fireside on Sunday. So we thought coming up here it'd be a good chance to kind of come hang out with you, Blu, and spend some time with you. And then Brock heard about it. Brock says, I'm in. Of course, Brock says I'm in because that's Brock. He goes, when's the flight? We're coming up too. Blu, you got a room for me. So it's awesome. So yeah, we're on the plane together. We're here. I'm looking forward to the fireside. I am meeting up tomorrow with a good friend of mine named Dustin Smith. He runs a program. He runs a quarterback program called QB Elite. And then he also has a nonprofit that he's starting a podcast with, and the podcast is called The Sportlight. So I have a chance to do that tomorrow.
Very good.
And it's about, using the spotlight that you get as athletes for good.
That's so cool.
And he might be a good guy to maybe have on one day and
let's
talk
do
with
that
him when we get to that point. So that's why we're here. And then it all came together. So
fantastic.
Excited to be here, man.
It's good. Listen, let's dive into it. Listeners, we're excited to do this. We'll do these frequently from time to time as we master the art of getting it all together at once. But really, this is for you guys, the listeners, to jump on, ask any questions. We'll be doing this for an hour and a half-ish. Don't be shy. If there's anything that I can't answer, Brock's got my back. So, my teenager might call in with math problems. You never know. X and Y coordinates.
Wow.
Yeah. Nonetheless, one of the first things that one of the Addict athletes, participants is asking is for the wives specifically, how is it now that their sobriety has been established, but there's always that worry or concern? What helps curb the concern, and when do you stop worrying that there's a relapse in the future? Brock, you flinched first, so I'll have you and Maren go first. So Maren, what do you think? I mean, Brock's history, that's there, but you know him under a different light. And so how has that been for you to say, I trust you, and maybe what kind of communication do you guys use?
Man, that's a good question. So, to be completely honest, from my past relationships, I struggle with trust a lot. And one thing that I finally had to just come to grips with is I can't hold my past issues against Brock. He didn't do it to me. He wasn't a part of that. So for him, I just had to 100% trust him. He hasn't done anything to hurt me or to lose that trust. So I had to 100% give him that trust.
That's awesome.
So it was a process. It was hard to 100% trust.
Right.
But
yeah, that is amazing. Trust is a gift. I've always said that it's not something you can earn. It's a gift. Yeah. And you can do awesome stuff up to a degree, but if you do something wacky, then it gets taken away. And so you lose everything that you earned. So I really appreciate what you said about, I'm going to trust him until I know I can't.
But don't screw that up.
But don't screw it up.
Man, because your level is way deeper than it would be. Does that make sense?
For sure.
Yeah. So, ooh.
See, right out the gate, they're asking the great question, see?
It's a good question.
So what do you do, Brock, to make sure that, you are doing what you say you're doing? And what happens when the eyebrow does get raised and you're like, no, this is the situation. Like, check this out.
It has been raised before, just because those triggers and those memories don't just go away. So when they come back up, you have to be on. That's what I even try to teach my guys is like, listen, we don't have any mess ups. We don't have any opportunity to go backwards.
Yeah.
So we have to be at 100% all the time. And so I'm completely open with her. Like my phone's never locked. You know, I don't change
That's
the
a
password.
great one. Yeah.
You know, because for me, I got to know what triggers her.
Yeah.
Right. And so pornography, infidelity would be a trigger. So I got to know her well enough to know, you know, like gambling's not an issue. And so if I went, it wouldn't be a problem. But so I have to build my plan around her triggers and cravings. And so I got to protect, I call it protective basement. Like I got to protect everything that I have internally so she doesn't, those red flags don't pop up. So one thing is the phone, taking the phone, being on the phone too much time.
Yeah.
Right. Is a big trigger.
Yeah, that's true.
Or the me not paying attention to her.
Yeah.
So those are probably three big ones.
preoccupation. I love that. All right, Mackenzie, you're up next.
All right.
How did you get into trust with this guy after everything?
So Max mentioned this a couple weeks ago, I think, but this is something that I learned, I think when he was, I think his rehab counselor, that time plus consistency equals trust.
Yes.
And when I heard that, because it was, you know, about 5 years that he had his addiction. And so that was, I mean, it was a long time. And I think that after rehab, I had probably about zero amount of trust.
Yeah.
Zero. 0%.
Yeah.
And,
which is how it should have been, by the way.
Yeah.
Like I hated it then, but I agree with it now.
Yeah.
It's true.
So
which is hard for me to say.
So I think that it just, I mean, every day, if, you know, he was consistent that day, then we went to the next day. And then, you know, if he was consistent again, we went to the next day. And it really, you hear a lot, you know, one day at a time. And that's really what you have to do, is take it one day at a time. And I honestly will say that there was a point that I even would tell Max, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to trust you again. I don't know if this is really going to work, because I just don't think I'll ever be able to get there. And that's hard, living in a marriage that you feel like you're never going to trust somebody, because trust is a huge thing. And so, but then, you know, he was very, very good with me at that time. He didn't ever push me to, you know, make me trust him.
Yeah.
He would just show me. And I even would tell him, like, I don't care what you say. What you say doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
It's, you have to show me by your actions. And then, you know, and that's what would get me to the next day, is his actions. And I think it was about a year into his sobriety that I kind of was like, wow, this was a year. Like, and and that's honestly about a year in, I was like, okay, maybe we're up to like 10, 15%.
That's so
That's
cool.
it.
So where are you now? That's what I want to know.
I
awesome,
would say,
man.
honestly, now, and 5 years ago, I was at 0. Honestly, now I am at 100%. I
That's
trust
awesome.
him completely. We are at a place that I never, ever thought I could be.
Yeah.
And we're there, and it's really cool.
It's funny you say that too, because when I didn't know that mine was the first podcast you did.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Like I really do. I don't remember doing anything before. And I remember, Blue, I was so nervous.
I know. Yeah,
I
so was I.
nervous. My anxiety
Yeah.
was through the
Max
roof.
Hall.
But once we got going, I was good. But at the beginning,
you
I
were.
was shaking, man.
If you ever go back and listen to that too, before you even came in, I'm like, I'm going to make Max Hall cry. And I did. I mean, I didn't. That's the first time I ever met you and everything. But the only time Max got emotional was when he was talking about you. And I said, you know, how did your wife stick through all this with you? And that's where he started getting emotional. And so I look at that and I hear what you're saying, and I'm like, it hasn't been an easy journey, but it's been one that I think without it, where would your life be now? I mean, it's almost funny that the adversity causes that I don't know, that binding to get tighter, right? And I'm only saying this because I'm stalling, because I know Marissa's going to take the mic now and tell you about how she trusted me, because I was a knucklehead too. Like, my addiction had ended, but all the residuals of the lying and the hiding and, you know, kind of the suppression was all kind of there. And so, you know, how about for you? Because I think I'm 20 years into the marriage. I'm about probably 45% trustworthy now.
Maybe.
It's good.
Yeah, like Blue said, when we met, he was done using, but he was still lying and all of the other addict behaviors that people think just disappear. They don't. And unless you really address it, they don't go away. And so we had a mutual friend that had gotten close enough to him and started recognizing some of the things that he was keeping a secret, and knew that we were getting serious. We were talking about marriage. And so he came to my house where I was living with some roommates and pretty much knocked on the door and told me everything. And first off, I was just like, why are you trying to ruin my life? Why are you trying to ruin this perfect relationship I had? Because I didn't trust this guy. I knew him well, but I was like, what is this? So I called Blu up after just going, okay, well, I'll just ask him. And so I just got him on the phone, which I shouldn't have done. Always do it face to face. You can read more in, nonverbal cues. But I just asked him if it was true, and he was silent. And
it's like the first time ever I was speechless. You don't know what to say. And I'm like, well, this is different, obviously. But I'm like, at that point, I couldn't come up with anything else to throw the shade. It was too late. And it was really, I was full on speechless.
Yeah. And I knew right then that it was true. And so, yeah, your heart sinks right to your stomach. It's, like a big thud. And
for me, just so you guys know, it was more of things that I always intended to do, but never did. And so I was living kind of vicariously through the future. I already have, I'm a graduate from high school. I didn't graduate high school. Career in law enforcement, that was my plan. But I hadn't done it. But everyone was like, oh yeah, that's who you are. Things like that, things that I never thought would catch up to me, because as we talked before, I was always bouncing around and moving. I didn't think anything would ever catch up to me. And finally, when I wanted to lay some roots down, it caught up with me. So it was this kind of identity crisis I was having.
Yeah. So it was hard. I told him then that he needed to get into counseling and therapy if we had a chance at anything. And so he did. He was very willing. And then after the first session, he's like, nope, just kidding. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
I told you I was done.
Yeah.
After the first one.
He walked out of the session and said, I'm cured, And I'm like, no. So he, tail between his legs and went back, and he started going. And I just, again, like Kenzie said, it's just action. And what can you see? I don't believe you, but I kind of tracked him. If I had a GPS then, I would have been using it. And so I would, he started when I found out about the school thing, he decided to go back and finish high school and go to adult high. So I would go by the high school to see if he was really there. And every one of those times that he said he was doing something and I caught him doing it, it was just like this drop in the bucket, and then at time and consistency, it just slowly gets better. But, there's always little slip ups of just something here. I mean, it's a hard thing to just give up when you're used to doing everything and just saying you're perfect, to just be really honest, which means you're not perfect. That's really hard to do. And so Blu still always had a hard time not saying that he didn't get something done or wasn't doing something he knew he was supposed to. And so even those little things were really hard to take, because I was like, okay, well, what else is he hiding from me? What else is he hiding? And that was hard. But I had to start realizing, well, this is the only, I saw huge changes at the beginning, and I had to really focus on the positive rather than, if I got too stuck on the negative, I'm sure it would have ruined everything that he was doing too. And I had to let go some of that.
No, I think that's kind of an interesting paradigm shift too, is that trust. Again, it being a gift, it's like when it's given, how precious it is. And so it's a great question, and you guys did fantastic answering that. Do we want to bring Selena or Rob on and say hi? Let's see. Well, you know what? We're going to bring her on anyway. Promote the panelist. So this is our first guest speaker. I know Rob has something to say too. Selena, let's get you on here. She's like, usually Selena has to stay in the bullpen for a while. I really do appreciate though the willingness that all of you wives, I guess we should say, have to share this kind of stuff, because it is super intense and emotional. And when we let people into our lives on that level, you remember when we used to have to hide everything? How much better is it that, like, you know where you stand, right? And then nothing has to be hidden. Nothing has to be suppressed. It's like, we are who we are. It's like the Popeye syndrome, right? I am who I am. That we can't use that reference too much, because, that's all the kids don't know who that guy is. Selena, are you there?
I can't hear you.
Oh, let's see. You can't hear us at all?
Maybe just have her type in a question.
I think we're all on there. All right, you can type your question to us too, if you'd like.
Can you hear me now? I can't hear you. Sorry.
Yeah. You want to type your question? Type your question through the chat box and we'll get you there. Perfect.
Okay. I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. Do you have a question for these guys?
I do. I want to talk about PTSD and ways to manage that and not let it overcome your life, take your life over. I've had that happen recently, and so I just wanted to get some input on that.
Gotcha. Okay, did you guys catch that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Max, you're shaking your head. What do you think?
That's it might be more of a question for Kenzie, because I think she has that. I do too. You have flashbacks of things that you've done, or I say all the time that if I think about my past and I remember things that I've done, how it just makes me sick to my stomach. And, some of that shame and guilt comes back in. Like, I can't believe I did some of that stuff. Put my family in that situation, strain the relationship with my wife. And so for me, I guess that would be my that would be mine. Mm-hmm. And just trying to live with what I did and I don't know, I guess get past that or be okay with that, which is hard to do. And there's still some days where I don't think I can do it. But I work through it and I try to focus on what I'm doing now and today. And because that's what matters. And I can't change the past, but I'm going to own it. And but it still creeps up. I'd lie if I'd sit here and say that I just have totally moved on. Right. And I don't think about what's happened to me in the past. And I think part of that can be good, just as a reminder of why I'll never do it again, or I never want to do it again. Exactly. And but I know for Kenzie, she'll have those flashbacks too, right, babe? And there's some days where she's just like, right, I'm having a flashback. Kind of give me some space. Let me work through this a little bit. But babe, if you don't mind touching on maybe how has that affected you? I know we've talked about it a little bit, but does that still come up for you?
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say, again, it's, with time, I don't get as many. They're fewer and far in between, kind of some of the triggers that, I used to have those first few years. But I think taking care of yourself is one of the most important things that I can't worry anymore about. I was very, very codependent during his addiction. And I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't know that.
Did you even know what that was?
I didn't. I had no idea. I'd never heard that. I didn't know what it was at all. I learned it when he was in rehab. The rehab he went to, they did a lot of family stuff. We would go for a week at a time and come and, work with counselors and stuff too. And I think that was so important to be able to learn about all those things and learn about more about addiction and stuff. But through learning more about it, I think it helped me get past some of the like trigger times that I would have. And I still, to this day, will still have, I'll see certain things or I'll drive past certain places and just kind of like get that pit in my stomach of like, remembering what happened at that, there at that time. And, and I think that just letting myself be okay giving myself time to kind of like work through it on my own. And he's always been very, very patient with me. If I am having a day that I just, not having, I just am, maybe something big happened that really, really put me like in a bad place, and he'll be there for me.
Yeah.
And that really, I think, helps a lot, that, and I take that time to let myself go through the process.
Jeez.
And that is hard to do.
Yeah.
That is hard to give your spouse space, because you almost have the feeling like there's nothing I can do for her.
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to do something. And it's funny that, Kenzie, that you brought up codependency, because when I got out of the facility and I'm trying to get back to normal life, I'm super codependent on her now.
Yeah.
And like, if she's having a bad day and I'm having a bad day,
exactly,
because I cared so much about trying to repair the relationship that I think I went overboard. Like, how many loads of laundry did I do? And tried to keep the house clean. And I was like doing everything I could to keep her in a good place. And I couldn't always do that. And so it was very frustrating when I'm just sitting there like, what can I do for you? Like, and I need space is what she would tell me. And that is so hard to do, especially being codependent on her. And it took me years to work on that and get over that. Cause I would start having thoughts and feelings of, well, maybe she's going to move on. Maybe she's had enough of me.
Maybe
like,
today's the day. Huh?
I got to go overboard to make sure that we're going to be okay. So,
but then I will say, him doing that it started suffocating me too.
Oh,
I would tell him, you cannot do that, because it's so overwhelming when you're like all over me and all, because he thinks now from what he did that I'm going to give him a payback or something, which that was never in my thought process, but that was what he was thinking was going to happen because of, we had been through so much. And so
such a good point of view. A great perspective. I like that. Brock, Maren, what do you guys think?
So
Mary's like, go right ahead. She wants to go last.
What I'm hearing is this young lady's asking for some tools. And what's really important when you start talking about PTSD, I do not like using the D in there because it's considered a disorder.
Right.
I don't think it's a disorder. PTS, post-traumatic stress, is an injury. It's a brain injury. It's like, it's not a death sentence. It's not cancer. It's not something you're probably going to die from, right? It's a disorder. Mm-hmm. And so what's really important is there's two breakdowns that you have to do with post-traumatic stress. The first one is, and it's kind of like, we're talking incidents, and that's what we're talking about in addiction. The first one is you have to admit it happened, right? We all have to surrender and say, okay, I was an addict. My wife, she's reacting with this because of that. Right. So there's an incident that happened, but most times that incident has changed. It's evolved in our brains. It's grown so big that we can't even handle it. And so the second part is you can only own what's yours. Like for me, I can't own her past relationships. Yeah. She can't own my addiction. Right. She can't. I mean, she wasn't even in my life at that time. But what's interesting is I'm listening to this, and the first thing I want to say is you three ladies are like so different than what we see, right? Because you were dating him in the midst of it, right? Mm-hmm. And then you ended up saying, okay, I'm going to take all this baggage. I'm going to take all of who Blue is. I'm going to marry him. You two are in the middle of it, right? Mm-hmm. So different. And then her and I, we were like, lived different lives. Now we came together. And so all of us bring in this post-traumatic stress in our lives at different levels. And then we all have to say, okay, we understand that there's been an event that happened. Second is, but I can only have mine. I can only take from it what's mine. So for her, she has to say, okay, Brock is Brock. This is what Brock has done. She can't build this fortress around this story any longer, right? She can only say, okay, he hasn't offended me, hasn't broken it. And so for this lady that's asking is sit down with your people and take ownership of what's there, and then let the rest of the story go. So when we talk about post-traumatic stress in law enforcement, when we get to the scene, we see everything, the smells, the visual, all that stimulation, right? Yeah. And when we take that whole story home with us, so that's the disorder that starts happening in our brain. That's the trauma, is like, oh my gosh, all this. but what was my part in it?
Yeah.
All my part was when I responded, I did the CPR, I grabbed the baby, I took it, but that's all I can own. And I know that's a little bit of depth to it, but I can only have that. Everything else has to go away, and I can't like build these bridges and these walls because of this traumatic event. But we do that, and so that's what we've had to do. We've had to like break down all the walls, talk about what's really there in our relationship, and we have to build it up.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That kind of made a way around it, but yeah.
Dang, Brock.
Wow. How much do I owe you?
Yeah.
Hey, that was great, Brock.
Marin's like, I got to follow that. Ditto, huh? What do you think, Marin?
I don't know. I think he did a great job.
I dig it. I think it's great. So, Selena, Marissa, do you want to add to that?
I think the only thing I would add is just recognizing that when you are triggered and there's some PTSD that comes out, that it isn't forever. When you have those intense, strong feelings, just knowing that this will pass is huge. If you stay in it and just worry about, again, a lot of times post-traumatic stress, I think, is projecting to the future what's you think will happen, or that this is going to be on repeat forever. And just knowing that this is going to pass. Give it some time. Be patient with yourself. Practice positive coping skills. Utilize friends and family. Call them. Talk to them. Whatever you need to do, and know that you're going to be able to move on. And if you feel it when you are upset, feel it. Don't fight that, because that'll make it worse.
Yeah.
But feel the emotions and then let go.
So, Selena, did that seem to answer your question?
Yes. I just wanted to add one more thing is I'm becoming more to realize why my reactions are the way they are, and how they're connected to my PTSD. I say that, but I came from an abusive marriage for 32 years, and it's like little things just send me over the edge that really shouldn't. But I'm just now understanding, because I do counseling with Blu, that it is my PTSD that's causing these overreactions. And that was last week we talked about that, and that was such a huge milestone for me, because I'm like, wow, I'm not crazy. I'm not like this drama queen. These little things are causing me to have huge reactions that to me are like, what is going on with you? Why are you, why is this causing you to have a complete meltdown? So yes, thank you. That really helps. It's like,
thank you.
I'm continuing to work on it, and I need to find more coping skills for my little coping basket. But
yep, that's how you do it.
And like Marissa said, I need to recognize when it happens and not live in it, I feel like, but just like let it pass, not fight it. And then don't stay in it. But I have to have the real feelings. They're real, and for me, they're traumatic. So
right. Yeah. No. Well,
anyway,
thank you, Selena. It's good to have you on.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Okay, see you.
I think now that Selena's heard Brock's rebuttal there, I'll probably lose a client. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So well said. Yeah. So this next question, you guys, comes right up almost to the same kind of path, and that's, now that you all have histories of addiction and you've been able to talk about it, how do you respond? And this looks like for the wives, how do you respond when there's a need that you have? Meaning, I don't know is there anything that you are worried about giving to your husbands because of maybe their emotional capacity? It's like, okay, this is something I'm going through. Should I hold this close to the vest, or can I share this? The question basically asks, like, are you worried? Were you ever worried about sharing sensitive information because of the way that they might react? Well, should we make, you want Maren to go
Oh,
first?
I want Maren to go on this one.
You're not,
Yeah,
you got to keep eye contact with him,
Oh,
Maren.
man,
He's,
No
this-
yeah.
pass. Pass now.
yeah, there's no passing on this one. Other things that you keep close to the vest?
For me, there's not. I think we are good. We're mostly good at communication. Our communication skills are different. He's very, let's talk about it right here, right now. Let's get it out. And I'm more of a like, let me step back and think about this for a second or a couple of days, which drives him crazy. But we do eventually come back and resolve whatever the issue is. But I think for the most part, I don't have any issues keeping anything from him.
I like that. Brock, do you ever have that same feeling about keeping your stuff close to the vest?
Yes. Just because like we had this conversation this week. She asked me a question. I'm like, oh my gosh, do you really want me to answer this? And she's like, I do want to know.
How long have you guys been together?
We've been together
3 years.
3 years.
Okay.
Right. And and honestly, we pride ourselves in being 100% open and honest.
Yeah.
Like she knows all about my behaviors. I like she has no behaviors. It was like, I'll tell you out, but it was I won't give you the answer to it, but she asked me and I'm like, oh, I
You worry that like there was times in the beginning of his sobriety that I'm like, I don't want to, fight, because if we fight, I'm afraid that he's going to go use, or he's going to, relapse, or I kind of put that on myself, that it was going to be my fault, which I've learned now that it's not my fault if that ever happened, but that, I wouldn't ever want him to be under too much stress, or like have to worry about things more than he, would have to. But I think now we definitely are more open than we've ever been about anything and everything, and we both feel very comfortable being able to talk. I'm allowed to have, moments that I'm mad at him, and I know that he's not going to go do anything stupid. And so, but it took time to be able to feel that way, that I could express myself without having that feeling that something might happen.
Yeah. Wow. I like that.
Do you, I got a question, because I know a lot of listeners are out there going, here we go. Do you hold things close to the vest that will upset him and then use them at certain times?
Ooh,
That's a good question.
yeah, it is a great question.
I don't think so. I'm pretty, especially now, I would say that I'm like no, if I'm like, he knows when, I don't think I do. I think before for sure I would,
Yeah.
but now I don't. What do you think?
No,
Do you think I
I give her credit. She doesn't. Like, it's never like we get in a fight and then she's like, well, you did this and you did that. And what about this? Like, she's been pretty good about not doing that, especially, I don't even remember doing it early. Like, I don't think you ever like held stuff and then had some ammunition to throw at me if ever we got in a fight.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm pretty like, and that's the thing is I like to, like, if we have a fight, let's hash it out. Let's, like, I don't want to have to wait. And, we used to literally go a whole week without talking to each other. And I was okay with it because he was codependent on me at the time. And so I'd be like, whatever.
I'm taking a break.
I'm good. Exactly.
She closed. She loved it because she knew I was in agony for a week, and she was just like, okay, let him sit in that for a while, right? But even I didn't want to tell her things. Like, if I was having a bad day or if I was triggered or whatever, because I didn't want her to worry. I didn't want her to go into a dark place. So then I'm holding that to my chest, which is unhealthy for me. Right. And so we've had to really figure out how to communicate. And now we kind of have a system, right? If one of us says, hey, give me a day or give me a couple hours, we'll be okay with that. But we both know at some point we're going to come together and figure it out. And for me, the less amount of time in between is better, because I just sit there and worry and stress and want to know what's going through her head. But we're getting better at it. We are. I do feel like I'm open. Brock, if you remember when we went and visited your buddy, we sat in the car. I admitted to you, I said, for the first time, and it had been a while, but I feel like I'm completely honest about everything. She knows everything that's going on. I don't have a secret. I don't have a reason to lie right now. And that is a great feeling, because even though I was sober, there were still things that I'd lie about. Yeah. Right. And I think all of us did that. Yep. And to be at the point where I really feel like if something went down or if something's going on with me, I can tell her, it's a pretty good feeling. Right. But it took a while to get there, and we're still working on that. We're still figuring it out. We could get in a fight tonight for all I know. And then we're going to have to work through that, but hopefully not. Can you enjoy our vacation, please, without fighting? So I'm interested. I know
dig that.
We answered ours. And it sounds like I remember you saying Blue still lied and still did some things, and you're following him around and making sure he's at the right spot. Kenzie did that. She was on the phone, seeing where I was at.
I love it.
But when she finally got to the point where she's like, I don't care. If you want to go do that, that's on you. That's not on me. And that actually kind of made me mad. I'm like, that won't make you mad? If I go do this, that won't make you mad? She's like, no, that's your decision, man.
It's up to you.
Yeah, exactly.
See, that's an interesting thing. I want you to answer this, Marissa, because Marissa not only kind of felt that, but she discovered, I guess, the means to the craziness. Like, she started figuring out when you're stressed, you start acting like a fool. So
yeah. So I held things for sure back. I mean, things are better. We've been married 21 years, but there were many times I held it because I knew it would get him. He was already doing a lot. By the time we got married, he was going to adult high, then he started into college, and then he had church callings. And there were times he had like 2 or 3 jobs and a church calling. And it was just like, I can't give him one more thing, And so I would just hold it, or other times where I only felt okay if I said everything, even dumb things, which I catch myself a little more like, is this really that important to bring up? Or am I just nitpicking to just peck?
Have you kind of figured out which is which? Have you kind of been able to filter?
Yeah, I think, I think I can figure it out and know to, like, this isn't a big deal. Just let it go. Yeah. Let it go.
Well, there was a time when even I was doing extremely well. I was serving as the bishop of our ward. And I think that they should have courses for bishops' wives. I really do. Because I had no idea. And one day I come home and she's just mad. And I'm like, what is this? And the next day she takes me to the temple and she lets me have it in the celestial room. Because she knew, I think she knew that I couldn't like say, you want to talk about that one? Because that was good. It was so good for me because she was right on every level, and I wouldn't have heard her in any other setting.
Yeah. So there had been a couple different topics that I'd brought up multiple times, and every single time it was just, we bashed heads. It wasn't getting anywhere. And some of it, a lot of it was like the boundaries with being a bishop and when's family time, when's, and we have always worked together since we met at work, and we've had all but like one job we've worked together. And
I
so
had to fire her once from a
Yeah.
job, just so you guys know.
that was,
That was another one.
Yeah.
Another podcast. That
That's very
made
true.
dinner really interesting.
But so we've always been able to share. We worked with clients from the beginning, and so we've always been able to share. And then in the church and the religious role, all of a sudden there was stuff. It was like this huge wall and things he couldn't share with me, and I couldn't, and I was like, "What's wrong? Where are you? Like, how can I help?" Or he'd come home and I knew he was stressed and things were hard on him, the things that he had heard, but he couldn't talk to me about it. And that was really, really difficult, like learning how to navigate that and how to communicate when we've always been able to share and talk about everything. Now there's this, all of a sudden it's like he works for the CIA. And that was, that was really, really difficult. So I was just having a hard time. And in fact, it was a friend of mine that said, why don't you, take him to the temple? And not specifically to get after him, but like, you guys, when you have repeated fights over and over, you kind of have your repeated armor and what you're already ready to just protect yourself with, or to, the arrows you're ready to shoot because you already know. And it's like that, going there into that religious, peaceful, situation was like, okay, we can't bring that stuff there. And we can maybe really listen and talk to each other and really hear each other. Where at home, you have the regular fight, you get in and it's kind of a repeated thing, and you're going to say the same thing and he's going to say the same thing, and you're both going to get mad. And it was fantastic. Like we were able to hear each other, and both of us hear each other out, and it was good.
So now whenever we get in an argument, we're like, take it to the temple. So we got lots to talk about now because it's been so
a long
long.
time.
Yeah. But Blu, I actually like that because it puts you guys in a setting that's at a higher spirituality, eternal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can actually put your fight or whatever's going through into that eternal perspective in the grand scheme of things, and talk to it from a different place. So I think that's, if you have a place like that, whether that's the temple or church or a sacred room in your house or something that you consider sacred and holy, maybe those conversations can be different and not so loud. So I actually really like that.
Well, the funny thing that we did too is I remember some of our arguments. It's funny because instinctively one of us will be like, all right, hey, that's my bad. And there's been times, a week, that's amazing. We go about a day and I'm like, maybe we should talk about this. Yeah. But it's been good too, because I'm not used to doing that. My mother, every time there was an argument, she packed up her bags and left. We're talking 6 marriages. And so, it was every time there's a problem. I remember our very first argument, I was for sure that she was like, I'm out. And when she didn't say the words divorce, or she didn't pack her bags and go, I'm like, what? Remember that? I'm like, what is this? And you're like, you do know we can solve this stuff. And I'm like, oh, I guess we can. So it took me a while to learn that problem solving kind of stuff. And so for me, it was almost the opposite, being able to learn it and then try to use it. But same with Max, there was things I'm like, I don't know if I can share this. And she's flipping like a detective. And so she'll pick up, it's in the air or something. And so, and then I try to double down, and she's like, keep digging your hole. Keep doing. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's cool though, because then even when that stuff came out, it wasn't the end. It was like, okay, let me help you carry that weight. And so, that's a big question. But it's also like, if we do carry that stuff too close to the vest, then we'll never fully heal because we're still hiding. Don't you think?
Absolutely. There's one more thing that I thought about. You brought it up, Blu, is sometimes we'll be in that argument space, and she thinks I should be apologetic and come to her, and I think she should be coming to me. And I think sometimes that's why the space got to 2, 3, 4. All of a sudden we're a week into it. Yeah. And so what's been big for us is, whether I was right or wrong, and my father-in-law loved this, because this is what he told me right before we got married. He goes, Max, there's going to be times where you're right, but you're going to be wrong. And I didn't understand that at first. Yeah. And what that meant is you had to be humble, I guess, and man enough to, whether you were wrong or right or what the situation was, to go to her. Yeah. And I had to learn to do that. I think you've had to learn to do that. Where finally one of us is just like, hey, are we going to talk about this or not?
Yeah.
Or are we just going to keep doing this? So
Rock, paper, scissors, right?
exactly. Yeah. Maybe that we should start doing that.
Shambo.
Yeah.
I love it. This question's kind of interesting. So again, kind of on that same premise, which I think was very well answered. Has there ever been times when people in your life, friends or family, have struggled in a way, and there's been worry or concern that you are getting too close, and to set those appropriate boundaries? I know for me, I've had friends that have struggled with addiction. One very near and dear one that had relapsed just about a year ago. And I got a call from his daughter saying, hey, my dad said he's with you. And I'm like, your dad's not with me. And it was like this hardcore like punch in the gut, because he's such a great guy. But then I found myself kind of like maybe I should be involved with him. Maybe I should get more involved with him. And I'm like, yeah, I just can't. And thank heavens Marissa kind of took the reins on that. But how do you deal with this stuff with friends, with family, with people that are close to you without being afraid that you're going to nosedive back into it? Brock, do you have any experiences like that? Brock, like maybe a couple?
Dude, the biggest thing for me and my family is I'm protecting my family first. I gotta keep that in mind, that if it's something's pulling me away that far, I need to put an end to it.
Mm-hmm.
I could, like you said, you can be involved and you can get constructive advice and help people, but what we do as recovering addicts is we want to solve the problem. We want to go grab them and pull them out of the area. We want to give them that constant supervision. So anymore, that's not what we do. We protect each other first, our family first. Yeah. And then we're willing to help you, we're willing to give you information, utilize these resources. But my protective plan does not allow me to do that.
I love it. Well, you have the same situation to me to a certain degree, where you have family members that are still stuck there. I have a sister that's very much up to her eyes in this kind of lifestyle. And it will go years without hearing, and all of a sudden it's, hey, can you come bail me out of jail? And it's like, no. And then she's, you're a horrible brother, and all that stuff. And so has that bothered you when you've seen that too? Like when you've seen like my family kind of struggle with that kind of stuff, and feel like I might get pulled back into that situation?
No. I think you're much better at setting a boundary than I am. Like your family I'm not as close to, but even with clients or athletes we've had, like you said, your friend last year, like I'm the one that will just bend over backwards and kind of have to pull myself in. Like I can't do everything for them either. And there's parts where they have to just make their own choice and do some work on their own. I can't drag them either. So
interesting. And
I know some people too, and this is going for people who aren't addicts, but they're the ones that are trying to help, right? Or people like us who maybe been sober for a while and are trying to help. That the addict or the person going through it calls on them constantly. Yeah. Constantly, hey, come over, just go buy me some more alcohol and it'll be okay. And I'll go to rehab if you do this. And then they might go to detox rehab and then they bail out, and you just feel like you're constantly trying to help this person and they're not receiving your help. And I think that can be a little bit of a toxic place to be in. And you have to get to the point where you set the boundary and say, I'll do this and this for you. But these are my conditions. Right. That if you do this, I'll do this for you. But until I see that, I have to step back. And if that's a son or daughter or brother or sister or just a close friend, that can be really hard to say to somebody. Yeah. And I know of parents who have had to tell their kids, look, I'm done. When you're ready to do this, come talk to me. But I'm not going to, what's the word? I'm not going to enable. Yeah. I'm not going to enable you anymore. Yeah. I'm not going to give you money. I'm not going to buy you booze, or I'm not going to take you to this person's house. You're on your own. On your own. But when you're ready to make that choice and do whatever you have to do, I'm going to be right there to help you.
I love that. Yeah. So Rob, who wants to meet you, Max, he's got a couple of football helmets. I told you about that. He's going to have you sign. Rob, he's a UPS truck driver, and he's one of our ultra runner guys. He's asking a funny question. He's like, I can't talk because I'm driving, so he's listening. But he asked, hey, tell me more about EMDR. Which is funny because as I'm sitting here thinking, all right, well, EMDR is called eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It helps us process trauma. All of us have had trauma. Everybody in this room has had trauma. EMDR is basically about stimulating left and right brain. And the cool thing about all three of us guys is that we've utilized sports, recreation, whatnot, to get ourselves into a position of like healing. Wives, you guys are in that same boat, I would imagine. It's things you're doing, either it's walking, running, working out, just life in general. I'm curious if you guys know how important like being active is in recovery, not just sitting in. That's why Addict Athlete was started. And I know when I listened to your Chase the Vase podcast, you're talking about moving and grooving. Max, this is what got you out of your funk, was to get back on the field. How important is it for you guys to utilize recreation in your recoveries? And I'm talking about like even things like getting away for the weekend as husband and wife. It's being able to recreate, play together as a family. Brock and Marion, how important is it for you guys to stay, I'm going to say active. I'm talking about running marathons, but like staying active. Because Rob, EMDR, like when you're running trails, as you've experienced in the past, when you're running, you're looking at the trail ahead of you. So you're scanning the whole trail, left and right. And it's a little bit, I guess, more important to look where your foot's being placed on the trail than it is on the road. So that's why running correlates so well to processing trauma when you're done with it. But Brock and Marion, I'm curious, how important is it for you guys? Do you guys get enough time together, enough time outdoors, enough time with the family to kind of keep yourselves above that waterline?
That's a good question. I think recreational therapy is super important for us. We start every day going to the gym. We work out at 5 and then we coach at 6. And I know the days that, if Brock's sick or can't go or for whatever reason, it like throws off his entire day completely. So I know just from being with him how important being active, spending time together. There's days where he's so busy and we don't have time together. It's like, wait, what about me? I need that 30 minutes from you.
Yeah.
So I realized that even just sitting down, spending time talking together is as equally as important as being physical, working out.
Yeah. I like that.
The reason I am mentally ill,
There's no doubt about it, right?
I go mental, man. It is because it's part of my plan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I have this plan in my day, and if I miss it, then I feel like I can relapse. Like I'm 11 years into this, and I missed the gym. I'm like, all right, dude, you're already slipping. My brain just allows it to take it there. So for us, everything we do is recreational. And we started getting into the Spartan races together. That was fun, just being on a race with your wife. I'm like, holy cow, how cool is that?
Nice.
And being just physically able, because there's going to be a time where we can't do those things, and we'll have to find a new vibe. So I think physical fitness for our mental health and for the men that I've worked with is probably the most important thing. David Goggins, in his book called "You Can't Hurt Me," says it so well in there. He says, and it's just, there's a correlation between how you work in the gym and how you work your life.
Yeah.
And then he basically says, you can see these people in the gym that struggle in other areas of their life. If they're not coming to the gym, if they're not putting out, if they're cheating reps, they're doing all that. They're doing this. They're living that same way at home.
Yeah.
They're doing the same thing at work. And so there's a correlation between your mental health and your wellness, right? By being physically fit. Because, I mean, if you're not physically fit, you're at home, you're lethargic, you're depressed, you're unhappy, you're unhealthy. And all these things lead right back into those triggers and cravings.
You're so right. And I love it because when Rob asked about EMDR, that's about trauma that we kind of get stuck in the frontal lobe of your brain. It's the fight or flight response is always on. And so when you're trail running, when you're doing things that are causing left, right brain stimulation, you can process that trauma and it gets put into that long-term where it should be. So although the memory is still there, the feeling is gone. And so you know now that when you're at the gym, you've got to have that because it kind of precepts the day of like, I can handle this now. I can do this now. Max, Mackenzie, what do you guys think? How important is getting that dose of dopamine release when you're working out for your own health? Mental and physical, I guess.
So it's the same, like when Max doesn't get a workout in, I mean, I know without even know, like, you know, maybe I didn't see him that morning and he was crazy. And I'm like, did you work out today? You know, like the first question I'll ask. But then I'll even say for myself that during his addiction, that's when I fell in love with like fitness and working out, because it was an hour a day that I would give myself.
Right.
I would get a babysitter or go somewhere with childcare and be like, I am going to walk in this room and I'm going to forget about anything else going on outside of this room. And that was, I ended up even opening 2 Pilates studios because I wanted a place that people could go and just escape reality, basically, and just take care of themselves. It is so important to take care of yourselves. And although we don't love the same type of workouts, we don't usually work out together, but we play pickleball together. We'll do, you know, like fun things with family, or so it is. It's so, and it just makes you feel better after.
I got a question about that really fast. I'm thinking about the way you and Max compete against each other here. Does he ever let you win?
He does now.
Really?
Okay, so
She's like, should we share?
we had been dating about 2 months.
Oh, jeez.
And I really liked him. I mean, we were like after our first date, we were inseparable ever since. Our very first fight was that I beat him in the go-kart.
Oh man.
And
Serious.
I love it. I love it.
He tells the story funny, but I mean, basically, you know, my go-kart is a lot, you know, lighter than
No,
his.
it's the fact that you're 100 pounds.
Oh, here we go.
And I'm 220 or whatever I was at the time. And your car would go faster than mine.
That's the same reason Brooklyn beat me in the kayak.
Straights, and then the curves, I would slow down because I'm not as good at the curves. And
I
then
love
he
it.
passed me. I end up winning barely, and
Photo finish.
And
It wasn't even, she killed me.
did not
Who
talk
doesn't
to
let
me.
that go?
We walked out of there, and I'm thinking he's kidding, and I'm totally rubbing it in his face that I just beat him, and he's like getting pissed.
I love it.
And I'm like, oh, wait, he's serious. Like, he's really mad at me right now.
Yeah.
He took me home.
He's
did
pretty
not say
pissed
a
right now.
word
Good.
to me.
Rob,
And I'm
get
like,
out.
Rob, yeah.
"This
I love it.
out." So that was our very first fight.
Oh,
And
so be careful merging these physical businesses.
I like it.
One another.
I love it.
Yeah.
So
Well, now that we've exposed me, I
Go ahead,
appreciate that,
fill in.
Mackenzie. I mean, us as guys, we're ultra competitive. I had to learn that it's a lot better to let her win. It's a lot easier on me. It's a lot better, but it's funny, and I love what Kenzie's doing with the fitness thing, and she's really trying to get, you know, what she got in that hour working out. She's trying to give that to others. So I think it's really cool. For me, when I first got sober, I had to learn how to live again without drugs.
Yeah.
And that was really hard because I did drugs before everything I did. If I was going to dinner, if I was going to work out, to practice, whatever, I had to do it. So to learn how to live life without it was really hard, but I had to. Like I always tell people, the gym keeps me sober, right? Because if I miss, I'm not the same person. That's why I mountain bike and I do all this stuff just for the adrenaline, to release the endorphins. And so it's a huge part of what Brock calls the plan, right? And we have to have that. That's us. And for you, it might be something else. It might be running marathons or whatever it is. But this is what it comes down to, bottom line for me, is what I figured out. You have to be doing something that you're passionate about. If you're not doing anything in your life that you're passionate about, you're going to be depressed, and you know, who knows, you might fall into a relapse. So finding what you love, what you're passionate about, and being happy and looking forward to doing that every day, it was key for me. So for me, it was working out, physical activity. Then it was also coaching. Staying close to the game of football was big for me.
It's huge. It's huge. Rob also wrote a little addendum onto his question about EMDR. And he says, I attempted suicide a week after I did EMDR. Could bring up new things in the past that caused me even more problems on top of what I was already dealing with at the time in my life. So Rob, I'm going to tell you a little bit about, and I want your guys' thoughts on this too, because, being EMDR, when you're doing it with a therapist, they go back to this thing called the touchstone moment. It's where you go back to a spot where you feel like something heavy happened, some kind of trauma. And sometimes when you get a good therapist that knows how to do it correctly, there can be a golden thread that connects them all. And when I've done EMDR with my clients, you can find that common denominator, and then the dominoes will fall. I'll bet you, Rob, that there were things that starting points you probably should have went to. And then I don't know if your counselor really put you through the whole gamut. This is why I think, Rob, when you're running, you do so well. That's where you do your process. The best thing we could do to help you, Rob, is and knowing this, I'm kind of like, you should have told me this when we were running that 5-mile run and I was on my bike. I could have coached you through this, because the beautiful part about this, brother, is instead of sitting in an office doing it with a therapist, throwing a finger in front of your eyes left and right, is for you to learn how to do this on your own when you're running, to do something that you're passionate about, so that when you're on the trail, when you're in the run, you can deal the hard stuff. So if you remember when you were doing EMDR, they have you pull up that negative part of yourself, and then they say, you kind of get that thought in your head about what caused some of that pain. And then you start processing it, left, right brain stimulation as you're running, left, right, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. And as you're processing it, you can start having these ideas and these aha moments. You go with those. And so to teach you how to do this as you're running and working out is exactly what these guys are talking about why they have to hit that gym, even for a small amount of time. That's their plow time. It's the time that as they're working out, kind of in that moment, you can solve world problems. I've been on runs where I start having ideas. In fact, Addict to Athletes, the whole concept of Addict to Athlete came when I was running, because your mind gets free. And so Rob, you don't run with music. You don't run with distractions. I'll bet you that your emotional pain was so intense that it was probably inappropriate for you to even start EMDR, because you were currently experiencing trauma, with your life situation, with everything. I think it takes a lot of courage to even say that, attempting suicide, for you, Rob, because I know you, and I can't wait, Max and Brock, for you guys to meet Rob. This man has a heart of gold. And if you don't mind, I'll tell you how I know Rob. So years ago, we had an athlete, her name was Carly. And Carly was one of my clients at the county. This is probably 5-6 years ago. And she came in with a substance use problem, and she got connected with Addict to Athlete. She fell in love with it so much that she brought her family, her mom, her dad, and her uncle Rob and his family. We started running ultra marathons together. Carly's family was like a staple of Addict to Athlete. And then in 2017, Carly passed away of a heroin overdose at a sober living that Marissa and I owned. And so not only did we have this huge history with Carly and her work on the team, but we also had this connection with her whole family. And so her uncle Rob and her mom and dad, Tyson and Savannah, the healing process for them also meant participating in Addict to Athlete. Rob has been a part of the team since then, but kind of brings this character and the spirit to the team that Rob, I need you to understand that, brother, if you would have succeeded with that suicide attempt, you have no idea the ripple effect that would have happened on the team. People love you so much. And so reading this is kind of making me get choked up, because I'm like, I had no idea that your heart was that heavy. And so the best thing I can do to help you, and I know that we can do to help you, is to expand your support team. You know, I mean, you've got Max, you've got Brock, you've got everyone that's not only pushing for you, but also saying, let's teach you how to do this correctly, so that when you're in your zone, when you're bombing down or you're bombing up, you know, Boson Hill on the Squaw Peak 50, you're also processing the pain. That Boson Hill, that elevation gain, it's not going to be harder than what you've already experienced in life. So you and I need to have a conversation, but guys, how hard is it when you get to that point where you feel like you're just in the muck and the rut so deep that suicide's even kind of an option, right? You guys ever have that mindset of like, maybe life would be better if I just took a knee? And if so, what got you out of that? Brock, I mean,
that is a deep one.
That's a deep question, and I think I've shared this on here before, but I did, man. I was going through it. I was overcoming my addiction. Just recently divorced from my wife. My kids were living in another town, 4 hours away from me. I was picking them up every other weekend, getting to see them, spending time. It wasn't what I was used to. I was a good dad, you know. And I was driving through the Salt River Canyon, and I had my service weapon in my car with me. And man, I was just depressed. I was just in a bad spot. You know, I wouldn't say I'm a depressed person by any means, but just the weight of carrying that, the divorce, the shame that I was feeling. I think we've all kind of been there. Mine was just out of, I reached down, grabbed my gun out of the center console and brought it up and put it to my head. And I was thinking, man, this would be easy. And then right then I heard my son talk to me. There was nobody in the car where I heard his voice. He said, "Dad, you're not a chump. You're not going out this way." And the shock of it, of me hearing his voice and looking around like, that's my boy.
Yeah.
You know, and him saying those words, like that would be something he would say to me. We were close, you know, we still are close. And so I got choked up, man, put that gun away. And, you know, it saved my life. My son's voice saved my life. And I know where it came from. But I believe, because I've been there, I can understand and be empathetic to other people that, you know, we do get low, especially when you're alone. Like that was probably the lowest I'd ever been. And I had nobody on my team.
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody I could just pick that phone up and just call and say, "Hey, dude, I just put a gun to my head." I didn't have it. You know, I'd either alienated everybody. I was too embarrassed to talk to them.
Too embarrassed. Yeah.
But most of it was embarrassment. Like,
Yeah.
dude, you know, because we carry this facade like we're tough people.
Yeah.
You know, we're not supposed to go through it. That's not. We don't commit suicide. Yeah. You know, we don't use drugs. And so that was a big one. So for him, I mean, I appreciate him sharing that story. It makes it real.
Yeah.
You know, that we're all, I mean, I'm sure if we all talked about and we all were honest, there was events in our life where it had popped in our head. But yeah.
Yeah. And when you guys meet Rob, you'll see why the world needs more guys like him. So Max, anything like that for you? Any feelings of like, you know, maybe it's better if I take a knee?
I had, I didn't get as close as you did, Brock, but the thoughts were definitely there. And it made me happen right after my arrest, when I knew I was caught and it was out, and the embarrassment, the shame. I thought I had lost everything, including my family. Thought I'd lost you, babe. And when you feel like there's nothing left, there's a dark place that you go in. Yeah. And the thought definitely crosses your head. Like I'm happy and I'm lucky that I never actually got to the point where I was going to try it or set it up.
Yeah.
Or I had a gun in my truck that I very easily could have done the same thing. That it's a tough place. But I hope Rob realizes he's not the only one.
Yeah.
And I like what you said. Most people at some point have at least had the thought. And life will kick you down and it'll stomp on you. And I remember, you know, I took a lot of pride as a player that if I ever got tackled or sacked or hit real hard, man, I'd pop back up.
Yep, yeah.
And I remember for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like getting up. I felt like just staying down. even digging my own hole and just laying in it. And that took some time and some processing to get through, and the self-worth to come back. And, you know, lucky for me, when I realized I had a team, Brock, when I realized there were people around me, and I realized that a big one for me was Kenzie, you know, when she told me she still had my back and she was ready to fight, that changed kind of my thinking there. But Rob, we've all been there, and I think it's awesome what you're doing now and that you've gotten through it. It says a lot about you and who you are. And there's hopefully people that hear this that might be in that spot right now.
Guaranteed.
And there's hope. And you know, one thing that bugs me is there's a lot of people out there who don't understand, who maybe have never been to this place before, who will call people like that a coward. But he's a coward. Why would he do that? But they don't understand how messed up they are in the head, and where their thoughts are and where their mind is. Like, they're sick. And it could happen to anybody. I never thought I'd ever have a thought of suicide. And stuff happens in your life, and you never know. So says a lot about Rob, Brock. I mean, where they've been and where they are now, that there's hope in that. And if somebody is there right now, hey, you know, what did that thought come through your head? You're not a chump. You're not a chump. Dude, you're not a chump.
You're not a chump. Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you're there right now, you're not a chump. You can do it.
Absolutely. And again, I'm excited for you guys to meet Rob, just because I say this often, that a race isn't a race unless Rob's there. He brings the spirit, and it's kind of, it breaks your heart too, because I didn't realize this about Rob, and I'm thinking, man, I love this guy. And so that's part of it too, is a lot of times we suffer so quiet that no one knows. And so when something happens, it's kind of like, what? Not him. So maybe listeners, you know, take a little bit of a stewardship check on who in your circle might need some camaraderie, some help, maybe some friendship, maybe some some time alone with you and them out, you know, running, doing whatever it is that makes you guys connect. But, you know, Rob, I'm a firm believer that it was your EMDR session was done too premature. You were experiencing the trauma in real time. It's inappropriate to do that. It's like dropping you in the middle of an ultra marathon and saying, okay, no, finish. And it's like, what? How am I going to do this? So, brother, let's talk too, because there's a lot I'm going to be able to help teach you. And you're kind of a bugger for not telling me this while you were running around. I had you do some drills. I was on a bike and he was running, so I was like, I can keep up with him. Oh, guys, my heavens, that's time. So, final words, Maren, Brock, what do you guys think about this? This is a podcast and a situation by which your voice not only will last for forever here on the platform and the internet, but more so for people right now. They're dealing with life and situational issues and trying to make it together and heal together. What do you say to the couple who are in that situation of like, do we stay or do we go?
Man, I don't want to get into people's relationships. That's what but what I would say is Mary's my third wife, right? And my life has totally changed. So much better. And if I could tell anybody, I'd say hang in there, your peace will come, right? Be open and honest, like attack the addiction and attack who you are, to where like you can come out on the other side healthy, and ready to have a normal. I never thought I'd have a normal relationship.
Yeah.
Max, we really don't have a normal, but it's more normal, right? So, but it's cool. Like I feel blessed. I'm glad I went through it. I'm glad I'm able to be a voice for other people. We can make it.
Nice.
That's my advice.
Mm-hmm.
Maren, I love this.
The pleasure. Yeah, I mean, I like what Brock said. Don't give up. When you said, should we stay or should we go? My first thought was, well, I think every relationship is totally different.
Yeah.
And people need to decide for themselves what they're willing to fight for or not.
I like that.
But if there's even an inkling of hope, I think keep fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I hear you both to a certain degree saying be accountable to yourself and each other. Right? Like be accountable. I like
Yeah,
that.
I like that.
What say you?
Kenzie, what do you say?
Yeah, no, and that's the first thing that popped in my head is every relationship and every person is going to be different.
Did you see something though in Max
I
that
did,
like
and that's the thing is, because his was so public. I've had a lot of people reach out and be like, what did you do? What did how can I make this work? If they're going through something similar, and I wish that everybody's could end like this.
Yeah.
And I really, really do. But I would say every story is different. And I will never forget the day that everything did come out very publicly. And I sat on the couch with my dad, and Max was over at his parents' house. And my dad said, "What do you want to do?"
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, if he's going to fight, then I'm fighting.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing though, is that there, even after rehab and stuff, there's really, really hard times. It's never going to be easy. Life is hard. And I know that, whatever path that I was going to take, whether that was, going our separate ways or if that was staying together, it was going to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
And there was always something that just kept me holding on. And it was that I just knew that he had the potential to be the most amazing man. And I kept thinking, I'm like, I'm gonna be so mad if I do end up leaving. And, I'm sure I'd probably, be okay and I have a happy life.
Yeah.
But if I had to watch him be the man I knew he could be with someone else,
Yeah.
I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
And
Like, hey, wait.
that was what kept me holding on, because I knew he could do it. And I knew he could. And but that's the thing, is he kept fighting.
Yeah.
And he kept doing his part. And that's what I would say is, if that person that you want a relationship with is doing their part, then keep fighting.
Keep fighting.
Helping and be there. And
I love that.
Let's be honest. The reason why she stayed with me is my good looks.
Yeah.
If I didn't look so good, even when I crashed on a bike, I look good.
And your grace. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and man, I know that was hard for you to say, and love and appreciate you. And it's amazing the three different relationships that we have, and the different perspective and what we've all had to go through. At the end of the day, I love Mackenzie more than anything in the world, and I hope that you felt that, and I was willing to fight and do those things that I can. So, man, I'm so happy she stuck with me. I mean, she saved my life, because if she wouldn't have, I don't know where I'd been. But that first year outside of rehab, that was brutal. That was rough.
Yeah.
And so getting through that into where we're at now, it was worth it. So I agree with what everybody has said. If there's something there, give it a chance and see if it'll come out on the other side. So, man, that was hard to get through, but I appreciate all the girls being here and their insight. I think they had a lot to give today. So hopefully, some wives or moms or anybody out there got some help from these three ladies. So
I love that. I'm a firm believer that we don't just grow old together, that we heal together. And I think that's kind of the purpose of all this. Marissa had to step out because she wants to feed us all. So she went to grab that. But I'll tell you guys this, and that's, I've learned how not to be an appropriate spouse through all the examples I had with pretty messed up stepdads. And the coolest part about all this is that history doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have to repeat it. So my thing is I learned how not to be a great husband and a great father from some pretty horrible examples, but amazing in their own right, because I choose to do the opposite. And so just because I have a horrible upbringing doesn't give me the right to use it as an excuse to kind of follow that same path. And so for me, it was, like I said, that very first argument we had, I thought, well, that's it. And it was something stupid. It was like maybe just a blip on the radar. But for me, I thought it's over. And when you realize that problem solving comes through, being accountable and loving and learning how to be loved, that's one of the neatest things. So listeners, I hope that this has been good for you. We've worked out some kinks in the live system. So we'll be doing this again. We have some good platforms we're going to be bringing that's going to bump up a lot of the audio visual stuff so we can do this more often. I hope it's worked well for you. Thank you, Mackenzie and Maren, for hanging in there. It wasn't as scary as you thought, huh? It was good. And again, athletes and listeners, people out there, moms, dads, family systems, take it from us. We are the agents of recovery.